So, in this little video, I'm going to just go over the history of my alt track that I have called Fiona, which was named by one of my friends. When I bought this car, is 2012, is about $800, and it came with what some people might call goodies, but overall, it's a bunch of things I haven't used. The car did not run when I got it, and as you'll see through the photos, was in pretty rough shape. The engine was halfway dismantled. They had said there were some issues getting it to run right, yada yada yada. So I buy it $800 from someone who I think it just gotten in over their head, and I simply started trying to put it back together once I got it in my garage. I didn't know the condition of the engine. I had heard rumors that it had a rebuilt engine, so on and so forth, by one of the previous owners. And God, I hated those rims. And that hood scoop, but I made good use of it. With that, I set out on one of my bigger car projects, which was to, get it working, have it, run. And as we can see through more and more of the photos, there were a lot of things screwed with on this car. I don't know what that little pull thing was used for, but this thing was just rough. So I set out to remove a bunch of things. One of the previous owners had added a remote start. Very poorly done. Instead of trying to make it work, I simply removed it. It just so many things wrong with this car. But it was a project. I wanted an all track. This was the third one I had had in my possession. I had owned one that ran before, but I didn't make enough money in my life at that time to maintain it, and I sold it before it degraded into something horrible. The second one I owned was someone else's project that they stripped. But anyway, so, you know, pulled the harness, started reinstalling things, just trying to clean everything up and get it back to the way it should have been. You know, oh God, so many wires. Yeah, and just so you know, even though we're like a minute, 2 minutes in, yeah, this is more of a slideshow history. So if you haven't clicked off the video yet and don't really care for slideshows, probably a good idea to leave. But if you stick around, thank you. So yeah, you saw the wiring underneath and some of the stereo, and it was horrendous. That was the removal of the remote start. That was me relocating the Indiglo gauges, and I had painted the switch with nail polish for green and blue, just, as more of an indicator of this one will give you green, this will give you blue. I don't use the green. So yeah, had all the parts, I put it together, painted it a lovely Hemi orange or Chrysler orange, filled the motor mounts with polyurethane, and just assembled it. That was the goal. Um, Also, did not like the huge hole in the hood. Got a spare one. Okay, yeah, I'm going through history just like you're going through my history right now, also. So around this time, I decided, well, I do need to get the heat out of the engine bay. So I started toying with trying to make a fiberglass hood vent, which obviously you've seen from my recent videos on the car. Never finished or used, but it's something I'd still like to play with because there's not a lot of, well, there really are no options for the 165. But anyway, so 2013 rolls around. Still toying with that. Hooray for hood vents. And oh yeah, got some wheels. I sold off the chrome god awful things shortly after this. Uh, I believe this is where. Okay, I got a spare engine. So I had found out a little before this that the engine that was in the car was toast. I had got the car running, but it was running weird, and about maybe 5 minutes into running it, it had, yeah, it started knocking real bad. The spare engine I got, in hopes of rebuilding something that you're seeing here, had so much rust that that wasn't usable either. A little later in this video, you should be seeing the carnage of the other engine, which I believe is coming. Yep, there we go. Motor's out. Bye-bye, motor. The girlfriend left the house because she did not want to see the car jacked up so high because you have to lift the front end up to get the engine out. Um, okay, welder, whatever. With that, so engine's taken out. All I know is it has a rod knock. Yeah, more takeout. It had an upgraded clutch, which I ended up using on the next engine I got. I'm not sure why that video or that picture was there, but hey, let's keep going. So yeah, not a bad clutch. It's served well now for a couple years of me being able to drive the car. But yeah, so there we go. There's the carnage. So the people in Idaho, one of the previous owners, apparently had rebuilt this thing, and judging by the crank, they had machined the crank, but they did not machine the rods. So they were probably out of round, and they just threw new bearings on there. Never ran right. It went through two different people here in Utah before it got to me. These are photos from me trying to figure out any information on the cams and things like that. But as you can see, yeah, bearings were not very happy. We'll just say that. They very not happy. So yeah, started taking it apart. So around this point, I actually tried to take the crank in and get it machined. And that's when I found out the crank had been machined and it could not be machined again because it would put it out of spec, or they couldn't, there were no bearings they would be able to put on it at that point. So, with that knowledge, I had started looking into doing the Caldina engine swap, which is the 4th gen 3S GTE. So at that point, you see, I have the harness, and there's the new engine, made it up to the lovely transmission. That was a harness made by Wire Gap, I believe it was. They mated the 165 harness with the right-hand drive Caldina engine. The install went great. They did an amazing job on that wiring harness. I got to give them that. So, got everything put back in around this time at the end of the year. I bought my FRS, and now we're into 2015. So at this point, the car was running. Engine seemed great, but it was running rich. I didn't know how rich, but I was still going to throw parts at it. So 3-inch downpipe from Prime MR2, Prime Driven, whatever, and an eBay exhaust. And yes, I cut my Aeroform kit to make the exhaust fit because I was impatient. Not the best of moves, but whatever. I'll get over it. And I can fix it later. But with this engine, I now needed a hood scoop that wasn't horrendous like what was on there before. So I cut the hood properly to just be the opening for the air-to-air intercooler. I don't think I knew where those plugs went. I think one of them was AC. But this was me trying to just diagnose things and get things working right. So yeah, I painted it with Rust-Oleum spray can paint. I'm going to repaint it at some point here because the paint's not holding up. Surprise, surprise. But yeah, the car at this point was drivable, but it also was not passing emissions. It was 4 or 8 times, I think it's 4 times the max allowed output for everything. But it was running. And I'm sad I did not get images of me modifying the hood scoop. But I took the original hood scoop that came with the car that looked like it's meant for a muscle car and like cut it in half. And I feel like it actually fit pretty well once you shorten it up. But yeah, so cars together, cars running. Also during this process, I had fixed the indigo whatever lights because one of the wires were broken off. So I was happy to make it work. Go me! At this point, the fog lights were still not working, and I didn't care. This was when I was still fighting with the running rich, and it turned out I don't think I have an image here, but there is a sensor on the back of these engines that the fuel pressure regulator runs to, and then that runs back to I believe the intake manifold. But that little sensor where one of the vacuum lines plugged in broke. Like when I got the engine and I just kind of glued it back together and figured, hey, air would still be going through it. Nope. And that really pissed off the ECU, so I did resolve that. But where we're at here is I wanted a black roof and I knew there's rust around the windshield, so I removed the windshield, painted the roof black, also got rid of all the rust around the windshield. Oh, not quite sure why that photo's there. Sorry, this is one of the rare slideshows I do. Sorry. But anyway, after I painted the roof black, I had someone come out doing a windshield install, and this was the first time I could actually get the car legal. So, car was actually running, driving, and I believe, yeah, this was my first attempt at an Android car stereo install. The basic Android stereos that you see on Amazon don't quite fit in that opening very well. You have to kind of grind out the sides a little bit. But I was able to make it work, and I also wanted a good spot for my boost gauge. So here you see me using PVC pipe to make a gauge pod holder. Eh, I'm going to redo that. But I finally got to start, trying to make the car my own. So I started using interior spray paint, turning all the blue black. And here you see some of the disaster stuff of me trying to put door speakers in. I definitely have a lot to learn. One, fiberglass does not stick to that plastic very well. But you live, you learn, you keep trying. I like the way the door panels look now, but I don't know how well they're going to hold up. With that, thank you for watching. Uh, it's been a fun journey for me. Looking forward to doing more with this car. Bye-bye.